I found out I was being replaced when HR accidentally sent me the welcome email meant for my successor. That was the moment I realized my boss, Evelyn, never saw me as part of the team, just as a stepping stone. My name's Jordan Lee, 31, senior analyst at Apex Dynamics, a tech consultancy where collaboration is everything. Or so they preached. For 5 years, I was the first in, last out. The kind of employee who'd rewrite an entire proposal overnight just to hit a client deadline. My work spoke for itself, until Evelyn started taking credit for it. She was the golden girl of the company. Sharp suits, sharper smile, and an instinct for politics that could make Machiavelli blush. I used to admire her. She'd mentored me when I first joined, bought me coffee, called me her protégé. Said she saw a lot of herself in me. Back then, I thought it was a compliment. But somewhere along the line, I stopped being her student and started being her threat. It began with little things. My name quietly disappearing from slide decks, her forgetting to CC me on client emails. Then came the performance reviews. Jordan struggles with teamwork, she'd written. Often takes on too much alone. Needs to learn to delegate. That line, not a team player, stuck to me like a stain. Never mind that I'd been the one carrying the team through 2 failed product launches while she schmoozed the executives upstairs. Never mind that I'd trained half the analysts she now praised publicly. I was suddenly the problem. Still, I kept my head down. I figured it was temporary. Maybe she was under pressure. Maybe I'd prove myself again. Then came that email. Subject line, "Welcome to Apex Dynamics, Casey." The body was cheerful, standard onboarding copy. Except, attached, was the job description. My job description. Word for word. And the signature? Evelyn Stone, Director of Strategy. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone in HR had sent it to the wrong J. Lee. Except there was no other J. Lee in the department. When I asked Evelyn about it the next morning, she smiled, too easily. Oh, that. Just an internal shuffle. Don't worry, Jordan. You'll still have a place here. Something in the way she said, a place, made my stomach drop. That night, I stayed in the office long after everyone else left, scrolling through old project folders, client lists, and team rosters. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. A reason. Instead, I found something better. Something that made me realize, if they thought I wasn't a team player, maybe it was time to build my own team. And this time, the game wouldn't be played by their rules. You ever look back and realize the red flags were there the whole time? You just didn't want to see them? Yeah. That was me with Evelyn. At first, it was small things. The kind you shrug off because you trust your boss, and you need to believe she's on your side. Like how she'd joke about how I was too intense. Jordan, you don't have to do everything yourself, she'd say, laughing just a little too loudly in front of the team. Everyone would chuckle, and I'd force a smile. But then, her tone changed. Suddenly, she was looping in other analysts on projects I'd led for months. Just to distribute the workload, she claimed. Yet somehow, those same analysts were being invited to client dinners I'd organized. My name disappeared from calendar invites. Evelyn would tell me, "Oh, it must have been a glitch in Outlook." Sure. Outlook. Then came the late-night calls. I'd be wrapping up reports in the office, and I'd hear her in her glass-walled corner room, door closed, voice low, laughing. Once, I caught a snippet as I passed by. "He's ready to move forward once the transition's complete." Transition. I remember freezing in the hallway, my badge still in my hand. Transition of what? Or who? The next morning, she was her usual self, smiling, polished, acting like nothing happened. When I asked about it, she said it was a client negotiation. "Nothing you need to worry about, Jordan." But I was worried. And then there was the money. One Friday, payroll hit, except my bonus didn't. No explanation, no email. When I brought it up to finance, they told me it was reclassified under management discretion. Management discretion. Evelyn's discretion. That night, I stared at the empty space where the deposit should have been. Rent, student loans, my sister's medical bills, all waiting. And Evelyn. She was posting champagne photos from some rooftop team dinner I hadn't even been invited to. Still, I tried to believe the best. I told myself it was temporary. That if I just worked harder, I'd earn my place back. Except hard work doesn't mean anything when someone's rewriting the rules behind your back. The final crack came during a client pitch. I'd spent weeks on the presentation, built the strategy, designed the deck, rehearsed every metric. But when we walked into that boardroom, Evelyn introduced Casey, the new analyst, as the project lead. She glanced at me briefly, a flicker of something, regret, guilt, amusement, before turning back to the clients with her perfect smile. I sat there in silence, watching Casey present my work, word for word, slide for slide. Evelyn never looked at me again. By the end of that meeting, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was calm. Because I finally understood something. Evelyn didn't just want me out. She wanted my ideas, my clients, my reputation. Fine. She could have them. For now. The betrayal wasn't a single explosion. It was a quiet, methodical detonation, weeks in the making. It started the Monday after that humiliating client pitch. Evelyn called me into her office, door shut, blinds drawn. She wore that same crisp white blazer she always wore for important conversations. "Jordan," she began, her voice syrup-sweet. "I've been thinking about your role here." Never a good sign. She went on about restructuring, new leadership, growth opportunities, corporate jargon for your being replaced. I waited for her to come out and say it. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she slid a folder across the desk. "I'd like you to help transition your accounts to Casey," she said. "We value your experience. You're the best person to onboard him." I stared at the folder. My name wasn't anywhere on it. "That's my client list," I said quietly. Evelyn didn't flinch. "It's the company's list, Jordan. Not yours." That line, cold, rehearsed, final, snapped something inside me. I wanted to argue. To remind her that I had built those relationships from scratch. That those clients called me at midnight for crisis updates. Not her. But she'd already picked up her phone, dismissing me with a polite smile that felt like a slap. That night, I stayed late again. The office was dark except for the glow of my monitor. I opened the client database, half expecting my access to be revoked already. It wasn't. Not yet. And that's when I saw it. Under Evelyn's user ID, a series of edits from the past month. Contract metadata changed. Client leads reassigned. Project ownership notes deleted. Every single one, replaced with Casey's name. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't restructuring. Evelyn had been erasing me digitally, scrubbing me out of Apex's records one document at a time. And the final twist? An internal memo scheduled for release that Friday. The headline burned into my screen. Apex Dynamics announces strategic leadership changes. Evelyn Stone and Casey Morgan to head new division. New division. My division. My data. My work. They'd built their new team on the bones of everything I created. I sat there in the dark, hands shaking, staring at the screen until the letters blurred. I don't know how long I stayed. Long enough for the janitor to flick the lights twice. By the time I left the building, something in me had shifted. The heartbreak was gone. The disbelief too. All that was left was focus. If Evelyn wanted to play corporate chess, she'd forgotten one thing. I taught her half her moves. And while she was busy stealing my team, I'd been quietly building something of my own. Off the company clock. Off the record. A team that didn't need her permission. A team that was about to change everything. It's strange how quickly pain can turn into purpose. For weeks, I'd been walking through Apex dynamics like a ghost, watching my projects, my clients, my reputation handed to someone else. I'd stopped eating lunch with the team, stopped speaking up in meetings. Evelyn had won, and she knew it. But then came the trigger. It was a Thursday morning. The company newsletter hit my inbox with its usual dose of fake cheer and hollow team highlights. And there it was, front and center. Employee spotlight. Casey Morgan, our rising star. With the guidance of director Evelyn Stone, Casey has successfully built innovative strategies for our top-tier clients. My strategies. My slides. Even the phrasing from my last quarterly report. I felt my chest tighten as I scrolled to the bottom. A quote from Evelyn herself. True leaders know how to build strong teams. Collaboration is everything. Collaboration. That word, that lie, hit harder than anything else. I closed my laptop, sat there in silence, and for the first time in months, I laughed. Not out of amusement, but clarity. They'd called me, not a team player. But maybe they were right, just not in the way they thought. I wasn't built for their team, the kind that fed on loyalty and spit out credit theft. No. I was built for something else. That afternoon, I started making calls. Quiet ones. To people Evelyn had burned, former analysts, ex-clients, freelancers who'd left Apex in frustration. One by one, I reached out with a simple message. You were never the problem. Want to build something better? To my surprise, they said yes. Almost all of them. Some hesitated at first, burned too many times to trust easily, but once I explained what I was planning, their voices changed. There was that same edge I'd heard in my own. By Friday night, I had 5 people on board. A designer, 2 data analysts, a client strategist, and me. The beginning of something real. We met in a dingy cafe near the river, huddled around mismatched laptops and half-empty coffee cups. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt right. That night, I watched them brainstorm, laugh, plan. The same people who'd been written off as difficult or uncooperative by managers like Evelyn. People who, like me, were tired of playing nice in a rigged system. As I listened to them, something inside me settled. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I was alive. Evelyn had taken my job, my clients, and my reputation. But in doing so, she'd given me something she couldn't control, clarity. They said I wasn't a team player. Fine. I was going to build a team they'd never see coming. And when we were ready, we wouldn't just compete with Apex. We'd replace them. Revenge, I learned, isn't a single dramatic reveal in a boardroom. It's a series of quiet, perfectly timed moves, like setting up dominoes and then walking away to watch them fall. I spent nights combing through logs and version histories, pulling timestamps, export files, and access records. Casey's name appeared on the client records, but the metadata told the truth. Edits made under Evelyn's login, from her office IP, during hours she claimed she was in meetings. I also recovered archived emails, threads where I'd first introduced clients to our strategies, and where Evelyn later replied with, "Great work, team," after I'd shared updates. Those were the breadcrumbs I needed. Not everyone at Apex was complicit. Some were victims. I reached out to the former analysts and freelancers who'd been quietly pushed out. A junior account manager confessed she'd been instructed to change contract dates. A contractor admitted Evelyn threatened to blacklist them unless they signed over deliverables. I recorded those conversations with consent. Their fear turned to relief when they realized they weren't alone. I wasn't a lawyer, but I knew enough to see patterns. Bonuses rerouted, client reimbursements redirected, contractor invoices lost. With help from a scrappy finance analyst who'd owed me a favor, we traced payments to a shell vendor that only appeared in the last quarter, an entity with ties to a consultancy Evelyn used for outsourced strategy. The paper trail was messy but incriminating. We started small, a staged, client escalation that required access to the client portal. I invited Casey to lead the response, on record. He responded using language from my original playbook. We captured screenshots, timestamps, and the internal chat logs where Evelyn praised Casey for taking initiative. Then quietly, I sent a curated packet of evidence to 3 places simultaneously. A trusted board member, HR with a formal complaint, and 1 key client who still texted me at odd hours. Each packet was tailored, legal sounding for the board member, procedural for HR, and personal for the client. We were careful not to appear retaliatory. Everything we gathered was factual and sourced. I kept my messages professional. My team, my real team, learned to never send anything inflammatory on company channels. We used personal emails, encrypted notes, and off-site calls. If Evelyn smelled a witch hunt, she'd go on the defensive. We needed her to keep playing the confident insider. By the time I pressed send on the final packet, Evelyn was still in her veneer of control. Smiling in photos, approving press releases about her new division, mentoring Casey in public. She had no idea how many people had been quietly turning their attention toward the same irregularities she'd relied on. All night I watched my inbox. Hot banging. I wanted fireworks. An immediate coup. But this kind of collapse takes patience. You nudge the first domino and then wait for the system to break itself. And when it did, when boardroom whispers spread and contracts began to unravel, Evelyn would learn that erasing someone's name on a spreadsheet doesn't erase the truth. The trap was set. The pieces were in motion. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It started with an email, one Evelyn didn't see coming. Subject: urgent. Compliance audit. Immediate action required. When she opened it, she would have found a polite note from Apex Dynamics' internal audit department. Routine, nothing alarming. Just a standard review of her division's finances and project documentation. The kind of thing she'd usually delegate to Casey with a half smile and a glass of champagne. Except this time, I'd built the documentation trail they were reviewing. The packets I'd sent had worked their way through the company's veins faster than I dared hope. The board member had forwarded the evidence to compliance. HR had quietly begun investigating the pattern of employee turnover. And the client, the one Evelyn had stolen from me, had demanded an explanation for why their confidential strategy was mirrored in a competing firm's proposal. 3 fronts. 1 woman. By Tuesday morning, her pristine white blazer couldn't hide the cracks. She stalked through the office, voice sharp, snapping at assistants, demanding answers. I watched from my desk as Casey followed behind her, pale and nervous, like a kid caught with someone else's homework. At noon, she was called upstairs for what she thought was a routine update. She didn't return for 2 hours. When she finally did, her lipstick was smudged, her steps quick. She locked herself in her office. The blinds stayed shut. By evening, the company Slack lit up. Emergency all-hands meeting tomorrow. Attendance mandatory. That night, I barely slept. My phone buzzed with messages from my secret team. Nervous, excited, terrified. We'd set this in motion, but none of us knew how big it would get. The next morning, the entire office gathered in the main conference hall. The CFO stood at the front, hands clasped. Evelyn sat beside him, stiff and silent. The air felt electric. Then came the reveal. In recent weeks, the CFO began. An internal audit uncovered serious irregularities in project ownership and financial reporting within our strategy division. He didn't say her name yet, but every head turned toward Evelyn. Documents show falsified contracts, unauthorized fund transfers, and credit misattribution. We have reason to believe these actions were deliberate. Gasps. Murmurs. Casey looked ready to disappear. Evelyn stood, trying to speak, something about a misunderstanding, an internal setup, but the CFO interrupted. We have verified access logs confirming the edits came from your account. Legal will follow up. Then, the killing blow. And in light of this, the board has decided to dissolve the division, effective immediately. Her empire, built on stolen work, collapsed in a single sentence. As security escorted her out, she looked right at me. For a flicker of a second, her eyes widened, like she knew. Like she understood who had lit the match. But I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just met her gaze, steady and calm. They'd called me, not a team player. Now the whole company finally saw what kind of team she'd really built. And soon, they'd see the one I was building to replace it. 2 months. That's how long it took for the dust to settle after Evelyn's fall. In corporate time, that's a lifetime. Apex Dynamics scrubbed her name from every press release, every internal memo. Casey resigned quietly a week later. No farewell email, no goodbye cupcakes. The new division Evelyn had stolen from me was dissolved overnight, its clients scattered. But not all of them stayed scattered. A few reached out to me directly. "Jordan," they said, "we didn't know. We thought you left." Their voices carried guilt, surprise, and a touch of admiration when I told them the truth, just enough to remind them that integrity still mattered in business. And then came the moment I didn't expect. The board offered me my job back. Not just the old title, the director position Evelyn once held. I turned it down. Not out of pride. Out of purpose. Because by then, my real team, the one they said I wasn't capable of leading, was already thriving. We'd registered our startup, Nova Stride Consulting, built on transparency, collaboration, and actual teamwork. The same freelancers, analysts, and strategists that Evelyn had dismissed were now partners. We split equity evenly. No false titles. No stolen credit. The first client we landed? One of Apex's former top accounts. They said they were done dealing with corporate politics. And when that contract cleared, when the payment hit our modest little business account, I realized what poetic justice really feels like. Evelyn didn't just lose her job, she lost her power. Her contacts stopped answering. The firms that once begged for her attention ghosted her. The rumor was she'd tried to start her own agency, but no one wanted to touch her name. Not after the audit findings went public. I didn't need to humiliate her further. Watching her disappear into the same silence she'd once forced on me was enough. Sometimes revenge isn't about ruining someone. It's about reclaiming yourself. Now when I walk into our new office, bare walls, second-hand desks, laughter echoing off concrete, I feel something Apex never gave me, peace. We're small, sure. But we're ours. And when clients ask how Nova Stride started, I just smile and say, they said I wasn't a team player. Turns out, they were right. I was never meant to play on their team. Then I look straight into the camera, and I'll say this to you. Yeah, you watching right now. Have you ever been underestimated? Pushed aside? Told you didn't belong? Good. Use it. Build your own table. Don't beg for a seat at theirs. Because the best revenge isn't taking someone down. It's standing taller while they fall silent beneath the weight of their own lies. Collision. If you've ever faced betrayal at work or in life, drop your story in the comments. I read every one. And hey, subscribe if you want more stories like this. Because sometimes, the best comeback is building your own team. Money with wings.